I would like to welcome everybody to our discussion today on I Am Not My Thoughts. This is Janese Neher. I have Counseling to Change, a small counseling service in Jefferson City, Missouri, and Cape Girardeau. And I have Dr. Dick Dalton here, who has written the book, I Am Not My Thoughts. So we decided to have a book of the month, and this is our book for the month, and I am very thankful that I have the author of this book, and I hope that you can gain some insights into this discussion about our thoughts that we have that challenge us mentally and physically and spiritually. So with that being said, welcome, Dick.
Thank you, Jan. Good to be back with you.
Can you give us a little bit of information about the book and the writing of the book?
I can. I better be able to. It's the product of a lifetime, really. The title itself, I Am Not My Thoughts, is a paraphrase of something I was told in 1975 when I was seeking some counseling, and I happened to be at a roadside church talking to a pastor that someone had introduced me to, and I was 30 years old, and the pastor, after I poured out my heart, mostly sad thoughts about depression and this and that, things that were going on. He said, well, you know, Dick, those thoughts are not you. And that was the first time I had ever heard that phrase or that understanding. And later in my career as both a volunteer minister and then as a college teacher, I would ask people, have you ever been told or heard that you are not your thoughts? And the ones that had heard that had heard it in counseling. You didn't hear about it in grade school or middle school or high school or college. You had to be hurting and going to get help before somebody would tell you the secret. And the secret is, it shouldn't be a secret. That's why I put it right on the cover of the book, so that every time somebody saw the book title, it would plant that seed in their mind, I am not my thoughts. And at some point, possibly that phrase would find some good soil to grow in. They might ask some questions about it. And what do you mean I'm not my thoughts? What am I if I'm not my thoughts? Well, it became part of my whole 30 years of college teaching health and wellness. And when I retired, I had some time to put it down on paper in a way that became this book. And so, technical difficulty here, sorry about that. And so the book is a product of that initial thought. It's a little autobiographical because it also brings up different things that happened in my life that put thoughts in my mind that then had a positive or sometimes negative impact. And then I bring in a lot of other teachers around the world, that whether it's other cultures or other modalities or disciplines, and some biblical references that lend support to this idea and approach it from different ways. So I think it's a very useful book. It's certainly thought-provoking if you haven't been entertaining this particular line of thought before. And if you take some time with it, then it's going to, I think, do a very good work for you.
So the benefits of our thoughts being, let's say, not mine, the benefits of that, and maybe even just before that, the explanation of why my thoughts are not me, a little explanation and understanding about that concept and the benefits we gain by that when we look at them as not mine. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for everyone?
Well, identity is one of the big things that we walk around with. Where does our identity come from? Mostly it comes from the people around us that tell us who we are. Oh, you are a woman. Oh, well, you're white. Oh, well, you're smart. Oh, well, you're cute. Oh, well, you're a pain in the butt. Oh, so we get told a whole lot of things as to what our identity is to someone else, and lots of someone else's. Whether it's a sibling or a kid at school or a teacher or minister they come from everywhere. All these different thoughts trying to tell us who we are. And what do we do with them other than we take them into our mind and, well, that's who I am. And it gets pretty confusing because some people think I'm this way and other people think I'm that way. And so now I've got, and one of the key things we get early on is we're better than or we're worse than someone else. And I call that being infected with the judging virus. It's as if someone says something to us, well, that was dumb. Well, why can't you be like your brother? Well, just some kind of comparing, superior, inferior, some kind of a judgment about us. Well, just getting that judgment in our mind is like getting infected with the virus. Because we then, in our identity, we start saying, I am better than him or her, but I'm not near as good as him or her. And that's our identity, right? It's an I statement. But that's just a phrase that got put in our mind that we identified with. And now we're infected with this judging virus. It judges us, it judges everybody we see. And we go through life that way. Until someone says, oh, that's not you. That's just a judging virus that you got infected with. That's just a thought that someone gave you. You don't have to say that's you because it's not you. What am I then? Well, you're an individual. And do you know what the definition of an individual is? An individual is a unique, indivisible being or soul. Unique, no other individual just like you. Indivisible, can't be divided into two individuals. Soul or being. Oh, well, I kind of like that. I kind of like being an individual. Yeah, hey, that's cool. I'm an individual. Well, okay, good. Well, let's see then what you have, but what you're not at the same time. So I, as an individual, I have a body. Look at me. I'm talking here. But you know, I clipped my fingernails the other day and part of my body just went in the trash. But I'm the same individual. And an individual can't be divided. But here my body is getting divided. I lost an organ a few years back. They cut it out, and I've lost different things. Of cells get changed all the time. My body goes through all kinds of. But because my body changes doesn't mean I, the individual, am different. It's just my body is different. So I have a body. I'm very glad I have a body. But I'm not my body. I have thoughts. Lots of thoughts. But you know, they're divided too. Sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down. They argue. I have a belief over here. You know, it's wrong to lie. But I'm not going to tell them. I'm not going to tell them that dress looks terrible on them. They just paid $150 for it. Guess I'll have to lie a little. You know, we have these views that we get programmed with that are conflicting. So I have thoughts, but they're not me, because I'm an individual. I can't be divided. And we could go through relationships, we can go through feelings, spirit even. You know. Some people talk about Holy Spirit and evil spirit. Well, yeah, okay. If you want to talk about that, they seem to be pretty well divided. They're not me. Spirit works through me, but it's not me.
So in other words, is that I cannot say that I have ownership per se of these thoughts. I don't own them. They came from somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I was programmed with these thoughts by a lot of different people.
Yeah.
So basically, I can't say they're mine. I can say, well, that was mom's thought, and then probably grandma's thought, and probably somebody else's thought. But I don't own them, that somebody gave those to me, and I, however you want to say, mix my faith or believe them, and they got rooted in my mind.
Right. Part of your garden.
Part of my garden that I really have thought was me.
Yeah, right. Well, when you think about a real garden, you don't have any confusion. You say, that's my garden, but that isn't me. There's weeds in it, or there's things I planted in it, but it's not me. I'm over here. I'm the gardener. But when we look at the garden of our life, of our thoughts, of our behaviors even, there are things that happen every day that mostly are automatic because of things that we've been programmed with, that have been on autopilot for so long we don't even think about them. And so it's the work of then separating the garden, call it the mental garden or spiritual garden, whatever way you want to use the analogy, as something that we can actually start becoming the gardener of. Oh, that thought got planted. Oh, that feeling comes up whenever I have that thought, or I see that person, or I hear that tone of voice, or so I can start looking at all these things that I'm programmed with as things that I have received or been planted, come into my mind, come into my garden. And so that really is a nice kind of way to talk about the book, because just about every chapter is a different analogy about who we are and what we have. And sometimes it'll be first chapter, we see the world through our beliefs. But there's a little picture of us looking through a pair of glasses. So our beliefs are like a pair of glasses. We look through our beliefs and see the world. Or even look in the mirror through our pair of glasses and see ourselves. So analogy after analogy, we've already talked about the virus, the judging virus, or the garden, other analogies that really bring home from different cultures, different perspectives, this truth that I am not my thoughts.
So when you have your belief glasses on, it really is somebody else's beliefs that have been transferred to us of the way we see the world, and with all of their perspective. And so therefore I may feel, as you said when you first started, depressed about certain situations. It's like or angry at someone, or judging.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at that, she shouldn't be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
All of these programs in our mind that make us do, as you say, action oriented, really do the things that maybe we don't want to do. I think that was one of the things that in the preface of the book started, like, why do I do the things that I don't want to do?
Right.
And then I can't do the things that I want to do. And I think in the scripture, if it really doesn't matter scripturally or not, but Paul scripturally said, I must confess that it's not me, but it's like a chair in my garden that is causing me these difficulties because my belief system is not accurate.
So the initial card, and you're referring to all these little parable cards, I call them, artwork that I put together to carry that idea. So here's a person, stick person on a card, and it says, do you ever do things you don't want to do? And then the question, which you is you? And so it doesn't mean much necessarily if you just look at the card and you see those two questions. You may answer, well, yeah, of course, everybody does things they don't want to do, but what do you mean, which me is me? And so then we have to, in the chapter that comes up in, which is chapter 2, then, well, let's hold out your hands, and there's a you in your right hand and then a you in your left hand. So let's say, do you in your right hand do things that you in your left hand don't want to do? Oh, okay. Still don't get it. What do you mean? Well, let's say that you in your right hand is like your body, okay? Because it's your body that's doing things, right? I mean, it gets you around, opens your mouth, hand, that's what's doing it, right? It's the body. Okay, so you, the body, over here in the right hand are doing things that you don't want to do. Well, not wanting to do something, that's a mental thing. Oh, so let's talk about that being the mind, your thoughts. Okay, so here your body does things that you have thoughts that come up and say, oh, well, I don't like that. I don't want to do that. I shouldn't have to do that. Well, it's not my job. Well, it doesn't pay enough. I don't know why I have to do it. Well, it might be dangerous. Well, that's Billy's job, not mine. And well, and so we got some thoughts that come up that complain about what our body is going through the motions of doing. So are you your body, or are you your thoughts, or could there be a third you And that is the you I'm talking about. It's the third you. It's you, the individual, that start to see that, oh, well, that's just my body going through the motions of doing something, and I've got thoughts that are complaining about it. I'm observing this. Now I, the individual, can start to evaluate and make some decisions. Do I want to keep doing what I'm doing? Do I want to keep thinking, complaining thoughts? What needs to change here to make me healthy and harmonious body and thoughts? So maybe a little of both. Maybe it's just changing the behavior. Maybe it's getting rid of the thoughts, finding out why I don't want to do it. Does it make any sense to complain about it? And so through that discernment process, that evaluation, then we can, hey, maybe that wasn't a very good thing to be doing. Okay, let's just shut down that behavior. Oh, it's hard to do, you say? It's a habit already? Well, yeah, habits can be changed. And yeah, it's hard to change habits, but in the process, you're going to be substituting one behavior for another, because we're all living in the same 24 hours. So if we're not doing this, we're doing something else. We're substituting a different behavior for whatever it is we don't want to do anymore. Good. Same with thoughts. There's going to be another thought come along. What kind of thought would be a substitute or a replacement for a complaining thought? And as some wisdom teachers throughout the world will tell you, when you can get to the place where your thoughts are thoughts of gratitude rather than thoughts of complaining, then you're really getting somewhere in your growth. Because if you're going around complaining, you're not happy. The people that are hearing you complain aren't happy. So that's not a very healthy situation. But gratitude, and I think if you want to go back to your friend Paul on that, he said, in everything give thanks. Be grateful for everything. It could either be a lesson of learning, something you can grow your discernment on if it's not a very healthy thing out there and you observe it and can learn from it in that way, or it can be a very feeding growth thing in a different way. But in everything give thanks. So yeah, that's where do you ever do things you don't want to do ends up going, and shows us again, I'm the individual that has the body, has the thoughts, and can start to make decisions about my behaviors and my thought patterns that bring me into harmony and bring me toward a life of gratitude rather than a life of complaining.
Well, it sounds like it's a very important concept for individuals to at least think about. The analogy about having a garden that I think that is used in the Bible, about that he went out and sowed seed into the ground, or like that's our minds, that we get sown with good thoughts, and we also are, let me say good thoughts, let's say growth promoting thoughts, and then we get sown also with some very destructive thoughts, and we have not been able to really even see that, discern, if you want to use it that way, what thoughts are good for me and what thoughts are bad for me, or even that there's thoughts that I need to look at. So because we're not taught typically those things.
Right.
We just end up feeling miserable and wondering, why do I feel the way I do? What's causing these problems? And, as now we are opening our eyes to a little bit more, that it's these thoughts that we're having. within our mind, and some of them are very positive, like gratitude, and some of them are very negative, like I wish I wasn't here anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Self-destructive.
Self-destructive, and that did not originate with me. I wasn't born thinking that way.
No, weren't born thinking at all.
Yeah. So to be able to not accept ownership of these thoughts, I take it personal that this is the way I am. This is me. You know, those kinds of possessive thoughts. That this is the way I think. This is my thought. This is me.
So there's kind of two things with this, though. Yes, I've acquired them. Is there some point where I am responsible for the thoughts and the behaviors that I exhibit? Some would say, well, you can learn to be responsible. And I would say, well, yes, I think I agree with you. But that would mean that you would understand that those thoughts are not you, and that you've gone through the process of discerning all those things in your garden, and you've had enough power, will, enough mercy on yourself and compassion to actually change your thoughts, substitute healthy, life-promoting thoughts for others that you have. Forgive yourself for the things of your past, and then actually choose what thoughts you're going to have going through your mind, what behaviors you're going to have. To me, until you've gone through all of that, you can't say somebody's really responsible, because they don't even know that those thoughts aren't them. Or they may be in the first grade of learning to process and substitute and have mercy and not judge and so on. We can't say, well, you should know better. Well, that's the old judging virus right there. You should know better. Well, I was probably 50 years old when I learned that you shouldn't should on yourself all the time. And using the word should on yourself, sort of a substitute for another word, it really, as an analogy, brought home, should is that's one of those words that is just an unhealthy word from the get-go, because it implies that somebody is willingly doing something that shouldn't be done, and I know better than you or them, and therefore, it's a terrible line of thought that we can discern and substitute another approach in our mind. And this political season, we're talking at a time when people are looking at people running for president, and talk about complaining and criticism and judging, and all kinds of feelings get stirred up, and disagreements, and it should be a time when, wow, let's look at all of these things that get stirred up. Where did they come from? But I understand that unless you have come across and even want to examine what's in your garden, it ain't going to happen. And you can go to your grave with the same old garden of messed up weeds and unhealthy thoughts and complaints and judging. That's just going to be the way it is, because you didn't know there was another way to go. And we can have mercy on every person in the world that is stuck with what they've got. I can't say they should know better. I can't say, well, they should have done this. No, that's not my job.
Well, it sounds like, that it's kind of like the end of the world in a way that when we start to be able to look at the thoughts that we have, it's kind of like the end of an old world way of thinking and the possibility of a new world or a new way of looking at things, and maybe being able to take some of these ideas that make us very miserable and be able to change that, have the power to change that in our lives to something very good that gives us more peace of mind and maybe opportunities to think of other things besides being dragged down by those kinds of thinking that we have been taught. So it pulls us away from personal to something more outside of ourselves, although they're in our mind, but something on the outside that we can look at more objectively instead of so personally. These are my thoughts, and I own them, and it's part of me. Because if it's part of me, well, if I cut my arm off, a part of me is lost, a part of me is gone. But by being able to look at the thoughts objectively, that these were, I'm sure we can trace a lot of them back to our parents, the way they reacted to life, and to brothers and sisters, to teachers, all the way down the line, ministers, the way we think about what we believe, or is it really, I believe this, or I need to look in the scriptures to see what is in there and then evaluate what truth is, that I could compare those things because it's not so personal.
Well, I have trouble, Jan, using the word objective.
Okay.
Because every perception I have is a product of ideas that I've collected. So I'm still looking through a pair of glasses or multiple pairs of glasses when I see I am not my thoughts. Still an idea that somebody gave me that I believed. Now, there may be other philosophies and approaches in the world that serve people well that are different than this. As soon as I start saying, this is the truth, and you need to believe the truth, I just let my old judging virus wild again. Let him go. Here he goes. He's judging again. I've got the truth. It doesn't matter if it's in the Bible or if it's in the outhouse. It doesn't make it more true. It's still someone's perception. Now, the question becomes, does it work for you? Is it helping you to feel happier, healthier? Is it helping in your relationships? Is it there's got to be a reason why you adopt it. And if it works for you, that is the beauty. But it doesn't mean that it is the all, end all, whatever they say, be all that ends all. Is probably not the way to say it. But you get my point. So to me, everything is still subjective because it's still looking through personal pairs of glasses that we've acquired. even though it's a mixture that's different than we had when we were young, if we've made changes, it's still, those thoughts are still not me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just part of my approach.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe objective to you means something a little different than it does to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm open to that.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this before we close, and then we will have another session on the different chapters that we can go through and talk about. But it seems like in this discussion and at the end, is there truth? I mean, is truth, if it works, it's truth? I mean, I was just interested in the analogies that you had given, and it sounds like there was a question: do we have truth in this world, or do we not? I'm just curious about the way you feel about that.
Well, was the porridge too hot? Was it too cold?
I guess you're going to say it's subjective.
Well, to Goldilocks, there was one porridge that was just right.
Mm-hmm.
But that was to Goldilocks.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, there are going to be things that are just right,
Mm-hmm.
that seem to work, to fit, to answer questions, and so in that context, just right is sort of my truth for the time being, for that bowl of porridge. But that doesn't mean that it is always going to be just right. I may end up with a different need, and what I was given in the first grade is not going to be what I need in the second grade. Didn't mean that the first grade wasn't what I needed, wasn't just right, but it may be different in the second grade. So to me, in that way, truth is more dependent upon what it is that we need at that moment. And it can change. Science is always changing because it's always examining things for a better result.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe take 2 aspirin and go home. That was the truth at one time.
Mm-hmm.
But if we have more things available to help us with our problems that do a better job, then, well, now the 2 aspirin, well, that's not the truth anymore. This is the truth. You see how truth is relative to the context and the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like relativity in some ways.
Well, some say everything is relative. Yeah, and that's true. We're all in relationship with time and space and age. And one of the things in chapter 1 that comes back kind of full circle here is that one of the authors that I quote says that we look through a pair of glasses or a paradigm when we see the world. And we, first of all, see the world through a human paradigm. Well, I'm a human, you're a human. Okay, well, we can agree we're looking at it as humans. Okay, not aliens, right? Okay, humans. And well, okay, many of us are in the Western world, so we could say a Western civilization paradigm, maybe an American or USA paradigm. And maybe we have an age-related perspective. You know, I'm now going to be 80. That's a little bit different perspective than when I was 20. People tell me I'm white. Oh, So I have a white male. Oh, looking through white male paradigm. You see, all of these layers that we're almost assumed to have is how we're looking at the world. Well, then we get into our subgroups of, well, my church is this, or my political party is this, or my band is this, or my all kinds of other layers get into how we see ourselves and see the world. It gets pretty complicated because it's hard to not look through those glasses. How could you not look through a human paradigm? You'd have to be Wart. Remember, Merlin turned Wart into a fish so that Wart could see the world through a fish paradigm. And then he changed him into a squirrel or something like that paradigm, and then a bird, so he could get perspectives from other. And so some people read books to get perspectives from other people on how to live. Some people travel to get different perspectives. Some people take off their shoes just for once and walk in the grass. Oh, that's a different perspective. I never felt the grass, but all these different ways that we can broaden our perspectives rather than be stuck with these more and more narrow perspectives that limit us down to this, I am a blah, 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 blah. And so, that's part of the challenge, part of the opportunity of life. And some people would say, well, I don't see any point in all that other stuff. I know who I am. And my daddy was this way, and that's the way I'm going to be. Okay, well, that's just fine. I'm going to go take a trip. So you sort of get my point that truth is an interesting word.
Well, we'll end on that note, and this is I Am Not My Thoughts by Dick Dalton, and stay tuned for chapter 1, and we'll go through chapter 1 and see what good thoughts that we can have. Whoops.
Yeah.
A different perspective.
And it starts right off with a different perspective right away. Okay.
Okay.
Been great, Jan.
Yes.
Thanks so much.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.